at the beginning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sage Live of August 2024. We're gonna hear about our interns, what their stories about their summer project, what they learn, how they live their internship. Before we start, let me briefly explain what the Sage Journey is all about and how Sage Live fits in that journey. Sage Journey is a program whose mission is to inspire and encourage students to explore STEM career for their futures. We do this by offering free summer camps, paid internship, professional growth session, and many opportunities to connect with professionals who care about you and your future. Sage Live, this exact webinar, is part of the Sage Journey, and it is an online gathering of students who have attended or who have applied to the summer camp and are curious about the next step in the Sage Journey. It's also a time to reconnect with all the Sage volunteers. Sage Live is held monthly via Zoom between August and May, and we cover relevant topic relevant to your journey, whether it's career related, such as a resume workshop, how to prepare for an interview, or exciting topic, technical topic like quantum computing, machine learning, astronomy, accelerators. The next Sage Live in September is going to be about scholarship and college applications, so don't miss that. And in October, it's going to be specific about internship opportunities for 2025. So if you want to know how to apply, where to apply, please participate towards the Sage Live in October. So today we are gonna hear about six Sage alumni who have participated in summer internship program at Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, and SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory and Berkeley National Laboratory in California. So get ready to hear from 6 speakers. Our first speaker is gonna be Amelia from New Mexico, Los Alamos National Labs, and she's gonna talk about data analysis of neutron detector. But Amelia is gonna talk more about it, and let's hear from her.
All right, good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen. All righty. Good morning. My name is Amelia Malakala. I am a 12th grade student, so a senior in high school at the Academy for Technology and the Classics in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Right now, I'm in the process of applying to college, so my plan is to major in actuarial science, which is all statistical probability and risk analysis and risk assessment. Yeah. Okay, so this summer I worked on data analysis. That's what I learned. And I was at Los Alamos National Laboratories, which, if you're not familiar with, is the place where that was, that's basically where Oppenheimer worked, if you've seen the movie. It's a really cool place with a lot of interesting history. But I worked in the P2, or Applied and Fundamental Physics group. And then I also worked with the ALDPS, or the Associate Lab Directorate for Physical Sciences. And the place that at Los Alamos where I worked is LANCE, so the Los Alamos Neutron Science Center. And if you're interested in learning more, you can always just look up any of this stuff. It's all online. And yeah, there's a bunch of history to look up. Yep. Okay, so I got to work on 2 projects this summer, which was really cool. The first project is the NDSC, or the Neutron Diagnosed Subcritical Experiment. The way that this worked is we no longer, as a country, we don't blow up nuclear material anymore. We don't do nuclear explosions, atomic bombs, none of that. But we still need to figure out if nuclear material is going to blow up, whether or not it has the potential to become something radioactive. So we determine the criticality of it. And the way that we do it is we shoot a bunch of gamma rays at a pixel detector, something like this, if you can see. So this is a little model that I got to work with. but we shoot a bunch of gamma rays at this, and we study the detection of them. So where are we seeing gamma rays and how much we're seeing? And the actual thing, as you can see on the left picture, that's the real one. It has 151 pixels. The one that I worked on is that right picture, and it only has 7. So it's very, the scaling of it is a lot different. But I worked on simulation data from our Nevada test site, and I learned a lot of C++ programming this summer. And what's next for me with this project is I want to be able to compare the simulation data with our real data insights to see if they match. Okay. And then my second project. So this is the ALDPS financial planning. So this is at the lab directorate for the physical sciences. So with this project, I learned all about budgeting and financial spending for our fiscal year and the way to keep projects on task. So a lot of it was Excel data, so spreadsheets. And what I got to do was create forecast expenditure. So to see if throughout this year we were on track to reach our budget, and if not, what we needed to do. And so this picture, and then the next thing for me, sorry, is just continuing with that next fiscal year, because the fiscal year for the federal fiscal year starts October 1st. So it's pretty close. But yes, this picture is where I worked at Los Alamos. And yeah, you can see that in New Mexico, if you're not familiar with, is we have a lot of vast land. You can see the skyline. You can see a lot. It's really beautiful out there. So if you ever have the chance, you should definitely try and come out, see what it's like. Okay. So another part of the SAGE journey is learning professional growth. So we got to learn a lot of these technical skills, but there's also so many more soft skills that you have to know when you have an internship or you're working in the professional world. So that's what we learned. We've learned professional growth. What I'm focusing on is my meetings with my mentor. So it's really, at first I was really nervous about meeting with my mentor because, one of my mentors is a scientist, he's busy, he has a lot of things to do, and I didn't want to be a burden to him. But that's not really how it works, because if I'm going to be assigned work, I need to know what I'm doing, especially like me, who had no experience going into this internship. So what I recommend for your internship is you need to schedule or allot a time to meet with your mentor, right? And it could be a day or a week thing, anything that works for you and your mentor. And you should always ask for an outline of what you should accomplish for, again, that day or that week, just so you know what you should be working on. And then always update your mentor on your progress, right? Like if you're doing something right, or if you're not, they need to know so they can help you do that. And the most important thing when it comes to meeting with your mentor is be comfortable asking questions. They're the experts. They're the ones who know what they want from you, not you. You don't have as much experience with this. They're the ones who this is their job. So, ask them for their advice and their expertise. And again, remember, they pick to be your mentor. So you should, use that to your advantage and make sure that you take advantage of that. And yeah, my acknowledgements. So thank you to both of my mentors, Timothy Ryan, who's a nuclear physicist, and Jamie Kretz, who's the project manager, so that ALDPS thing. And again, to Los Alamos National Laboratories and the P2 and ALDPS groups, and especially to SAGE, the program, because without you guys, this would not be possible. And the Department of Energy, specifically the High Energy Physics Department. Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Amelia, for your presentation. Your project looks very interesting. Do we have any question for Amelia? You want to put it in the chat or raise your hand and we can ask the question? Okay, so let me pick from one of the questions. There's many. So one thing is, I saw you work with 2 groups. So how was the transition between the 2? Was it during the summer?
Yeah, so I worked with both of them during this summer for a 10-week period, and I worked with them concurrently, so at the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, I usually on like Mondays and Tuesdays I worked with the NDSC project. Wednesdays were specifically for ALDPS, and then Thursday and Friday were just whichever one needed more help that week. So yeah, that's just how I did it.
Yeah, that's a good time management skill, right? That was good. And then let's see. How did you decide what area to focus on your internship?
Going into this, I didn't know much about what the labs had to offer, so a lot of it had to do with me researching what I was interested in and asking around and like emailing people because I had no idea. It wasn't exactly what I imagined myself doing at first because, I was never a big fan of physics, but I do enjoy what I've learned this summer, and it's definitely opened my eyes to new possibilities.
Okay, thank you, Amelia. There's one question from Ella that says, what were the expectations for you coming into the internship with respect to your background knowledge? So I guess the expectation from other based on what your background
Yeah, I
for
think
you.
going into this, my mentors had to know that I didn't have much experience because I'm a high school student. I've never done a lot of programming, any of that. So I didn't have much. There wasn't much to be expected, but the biggest one was just that the summer was focused on me learning new things. Because if not, then I've always wanted to learn this stuff, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Amelia. We're gonna pass to the next speaker. Is Raquel.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Hello, my name is Raquel Reber. I'm a second year at CU Boulder, and I'm actually moving in right now, so my presentation is kind of short and I didn't have enough time. Sorry. But anyways, I'm a double major with physics and environmental studies, and I spent my summer at SLAC. So at SLAC, my mentor was named Emma Snively. She was super helpful, super nice. I liked her. And I worked at NLCTA, which is the Next Linear Collider Test Accelerator. And within there, you can kind of see this like black box here. This picture is a picture of XDA, which is the X-band test area, and there was a baby accelerator there. Basically, it goes a little off this picture, but I would say it was like maybe 10 feet long. So, and in NLCTA and in the bunker, I worked on like kind of maintenance and troubleshooting. So XDA has actually, they haven't been running since 2022, and they just started up again in June, like I think a week before I got there. So they had a lot of like cameras that don't work anymore, or they needed to find like it's called I3PS number to like find on their what's the word? To find on their system how to connect to the camera and see it basically. They need a special number. And I also did a lot of like cable running stuff. So just maintenance. I told Emma I wanted to do hands-on, so she gave me a lot of this work, which I liked. And so yeah, I just installed cameras and kind of pulled cables and helped run cables, which is to like connect them. So that was the first half of what I did this summer. The second half was just like a general research project that Emma gave me, taking into consideration my interest in environmental studies. That's kind of my primary interest. And I want to be able to combine that with physics and find some kind of, I don't know, aid between the hard science and environmental issues. So she gave me this DOE workshop, which is a workshop on energy and environmental applications of accelerators. So it's related to the work at SLAC. She told me she wanted to learn about it and she knew I would be interested in it. So I basically read through this very long workshop document and then got a bunch of extra sources and just I put together like a PowerPoint and I would consistently present my PowerPoint at intern meetings on Fridays and present to Emma and other people that were working in NLCTA about this application of accelerators. So that was cool. This is a picture of a wastewater treatment plant in Miami that actually uses accelerators. So that was cool to learn about. For professional growth, I have timelining and time management. So I think that because I I would get to go into the bunker, the accelerator bunker, and do the hands-on stuff only if they weren't running, because if they were running, there's, it's a radiation hazard and you can't go in. So whenever they weren't, or whenever they were running, I would be reading the workshop document. And that was really hard. It was really hard that there'd be some days where I'd just come and I would just be reading all day. It was like maybe half the time. And that I think is a very hard thing to do. And I think that timelining and time management is really important when it comes to such, I guess, like, I don't know, mental work. And I kind of helped like myself on that by remembering like to kind of plan how much I would plan how much I want to read in a day, what I want to get done, stuff like that. So that's why I think that's really important. And then communication is obviously important. Just communication with your mentor. I bet almost everybody will say that, or maybe not, I don't know. But it's just really important. I think it was very, very hard adjustment in the beginning and like kind of not knowing what Emma wanted or exactly what I was supposed to be doing. It wasn't super clear to me at the beginning if another project was going to come. So yeah. And then I also put confidence because I had these intern meetings with these interns who it seemed to me were doing like really crazy hard work while I was doing like lower things. But I think it's important that to realize all work is important, probably, and that kind of whatever you're doing, you should be proud of it. And I like the workshop report is really tuned to my interests. Like I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about the environment. And so being in this place where everyone is very technological and I don't know, like I just think it was important to kind of realize like all work is important and to think of it as valid. So I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry my presentation was short. I'm very like busy with moving in, but huge thank you to Sage, like so much thank you to Julia, Daniela, and Loy for helping us get these internships. Such an amazing, like, I don't know, thank you guys so, so much. So supportive and helpful. And obviously thank you to my mentor Emma and all of NLCTA. Everyone there was so nice. And SLAC for hosting us. So yeah. I'm gonna be leaving after, but if anyone has any questions, let me know right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel, for your presentation. It sounds that hands-on is a lot of was like your project was extremely hands-on, and I think it's good to work in that environment and really see how things looks like in reality, right? So absolutely, your work was valuable, and Emma was really happy about what you did, and I'm sure it was useful, and that helps the team. And we need to remember that interns come for a summer, but what they do sometimes we use it for years. So it's really important that everything that you do is really important for us. I have a question for you. If there's anyone in the chat that wanna ask a question, just let me know. In the meantime, I have a question. What one thing that surprised you that you did not expect to learn or do during your internship? Is there anything?
I think I think honestly the whole workshop report surprised me because I didn't think that I would get to do anything at all related to the environment specifically this summer, just because I know that Emma has no background in that. Like I got paired with her because of the physics side. So I think that was like a surprise and it was very pleasant and nice of her to meet that for me. So yeah. And also just everything I learned from it, I feel like I learned a lot. That part was obviously not an experiment or hands-on, but I still learned a lot from doing that, and I think it'll help me in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Raquel. Any question for Raquel?
Thank you.
No?
I am
Yeah.
going because I'm still doing move and stuff, but thank you so much and good luck to
Good
everybody.
luck with your moving.
Huh?
Good luck with your
Thank you.
moving.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, our next speaker is Areli.
Yeah, great. I'm gonna share my screen. So give me a second, and then I'll get started. All right. So yeah. Hi everybody. My name is Areli, and I am a rising sophomore at Tufts University, which is located right outside of Boston. And I am majoring in biomedical engineering and biotechnology. And despite like going to school in the East Coast, I actually grew up here in California in the Bay Area. And so this summer, I actually got the opportunity to come back home to California and intern at the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory, which is located in the Bay Area. And I specifically worked under the structural molecular biology group at the SLAC SSRL, which is one of their departments. SLAC is built into different departments, and SSRL is one of them. And my internship consisted of a lot of lab work, as you can see here in this picture. And I was specifically working on protein crystallization for time resolved crystallography experiments. And before this internship, I had zero idea what this meant, so I'm just going to start off by giving a little bit of background. So crystallography. So I'm sure many of you, maybe in your science class or just out of pure curiosity, have shown a light, like a flashlight, into a prism and observed how on the opposite side, instead of the white light, it's all of the different colors of the rainbow. And so this happens because of a concept called diffraction. And so essentially what we see here is you have the white light, and the white light contains all of the different wavelengths of the colors of the rainbow. But when you shine it through the prism, these wavelengths diffract. And so that's what causes that scattering, and that's what causes these like different wavelengths to split up. And so diffraction can be applied to a much smaller scale. And instead of using a white light, we can use X-rays for really, really small protein crystals. And when we shine them, it kind of works like the prism in which we see diffraction, except that instead of the wavelengths being what is diffracted, we see the scattering of electrons. And when these electrons scatter based off of what the crystal structure looks like, we get a nice diffraction pattern, as you can see here. And so the applications of this diffraction pattern are actually really cool because they diffract the electrons spread out based off of the structure of the protein crystal that we have. And so we can interpret this data through a lot of like data analysis. And when we see where the electrons are placed, we can kind of use that to find out a 3D model of what the protein might look like. And this has a lot of applications in the drug discovery field because a lot of drugs are designed specifically for a protein. And that protein structure needs to be known. Kind of like how pain medicine works. It works because it's very specific to the shape of the pain receptor, which is a protein. So it connects really, really well, kind of like a key in a lock. And so when this happens, our pain receptors are blocked by the pain medicines, and so then your body isn't able to interpret the pain signals that an injury per se was causing. And so that's why pain medicine works. And so this is kind of one of the many examples why the structure of a protein is very important for finding new treatments, and as more diseases continue to emerge or more therapies continue to be needed, we can see why this continues to be relevant and applicable in our lives. And so that's what my project consisted of. It consisted of a lot of lab work, a lot of time in the lab doing a lot of crystallization experiments, but it also involved a lot of looking into previous scientific papers and just kind of using that to familiarize myself with a protein that I didn't have previous experience with, and just kind of familiarizing with the field and the methods that are used to obtain crystals. And it involved a lot of rounds of trial and error to try to get a crystal that we could potentially use for diffraction. And so, yeah, eventually we were able to get crystals. You can see here the two images to the right of the screen are the protein that I worked with for the entire summer. And then the first image is one that I used to practice with. And so these are two different proteins with different structures. And even in its crystal form, you can visually see how they look different. So you can only imagine when you shoot it with an X-ray beam, how much more of a detailed picture we are able to get about how these structures differ and what the protein might look like. So yeah, eventually in the long run, future experiments like with these crystals that I obtained would include taking it to an accelerator, shooting it with an X-ray, and getting a diffraction pattern. And this is kind of a snapshot of what that would look like on the computer when you're collecting data. And so yeah, I feel like this internship was a really great experience. Like I said, I had very little background as to what structural biology was, what chemistry lab work might look like. So I learned a lot, and I had the guidance of my main mentor, Daria, and also I had two other like unofficial mentors who worked with me as well. And I also got to collaborate with some of the other interns. So it was a lot of collaboration, and I was also able to expose myself to a different field and step out of my comfort zone. And so I feel like going into this internship with a growth mindset of, not entirely knowing what I was getting into, but still being very excited to learn and establishing that goal of, prioritizing the learning and the skills that I was going to be gaining, definitely helped make this a much more fulfilling experience. And I was able to learn about a new field and how it's very interdisciplinary. And so yeah, I'm like even learning about new minors that exist at my school that I wouldn't have explored otherwise, simply because I wasn't aware of the field before. So yeah, it's been a great internship experience. And so I'd like to thank all of my mentors, Daria, Art, Sandra, and Sage, SLAC, and the US Department of Energy for helping make this possible. I'm not sure why that slide wasn't floating, but yeah, thank you, and thank you for listening, and I'm open to taking any questions.
Thank you, Raleigh. Good presentation. It sounds very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And do you have any question for Raleigh? Okay, there is one question from Andrea. What did you learn doing hands-on experiment that you didn't learn in classes?
Yeah. So for me, because I'm a rising sophomore in college, when I took chemistry in high school, it was when everything was online during COVID. So my like content knowledge that I learned in chemistry was initially already a little bit shortened because of the online learning format, and also because we were online, we didn't have access to doing a lot of that hands-on like lab work that you would usually do in a intro to chemistry class. So I had very limited chemistry knowledge, and so for me, like I had worked I think through my classes and like previous experiences, like in a more biology, like you work with cells, and yes, it's lab work, but it's different. Different skills and different like background knowledge is needed. And so yeah, I learned a lot about just kind of like, even familiarizing myself with like basic chemical so that are found in the lab and that I hadn't necessarily worked with before, simply because my classes were online when I took chemistry, and I hadn't gotten around to taking chemistry at the college level yet. So I learned a lot, and it was a lot of troubleshooting as well. Even like, making some like solution, like there was calculations involved for that, or like I said, there was multiple rounds of crystallization attempts that I had. So you know, a lot of that trial and error that comes with research. And like I intend to go to grad school after my undergrad, and for grad school I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of trial and error for whatever it is that I end up doing research in. So yeah, it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of just familiarizing myself with, like, you know, basic chemistry that I hadn't had as much experience with before. So
Awesome. Thank you, Riley. And just one more question. Can you describe what was your day like as an intern?
yeah, so because I was in the structural biology group and I was specifically like trying to make the crystals used for the field, my day involved a lot of lab work. So a lot of the days I was in the lab, and I was also working with another undergrad through a different program, but we were working on the same project. So it was also a lot of like collaboration in that sense. So we would go into the lab, we would try to, you know, set up some of the solutions that we would need for making the crystals, and then try to make the crystals. And then if we had multiple like batches that we had, you know, been trying to grow, then also like kind of making observations on the previous ones, seeing if any of those had grown, observing what conditions were giving us better results to like try to pivot in that general direction, because we were trying to find what would give us the better quality crystal. And yeah, other time I would be in the lab. I wouldn't be in the lab, and I'd be like in the office, like looking at papers or like meeting with my three like mentors or like other people in the SMB group, and just kind of going off of what our current progress was, and, you know, trying to get feedback and learning a little bit more about what they would do. So yeah.
And here, Riley is very focused on telling you what she was doing in the lab, but the internship is also a lot of fun. There's like lunches, there's like technical talk, there's a lot of other things that we ask you to do actually.
Yeah.
So it's like a variety of things. You're not only only at the lab, you get to meet a lot of people actually.
For sure.
So it was, there's a lot of time management, right? Really, like what you have to do in the lab, and then, you know, the classes or some classes on professional growth that you want to take, and then meeting with all the people. So it's good. Thank you, Riley. Thank you very much. Oh, there is one more question. I just want to mention for application to internship, we're going to talk a little bit about at the end about it. And there's one specific stage like where we talk only about application for internship. But there is one question from Irene that says, how did you apply for the position?
Yeah. So I applied because I like found out through the like emailing list, and also through like Sage Journey Instagram, which you guys should follow if you haven't already. I found out that there was an interest form for potential summer internships, and at the time I was kind of leaning towards, okay, I want to apply to something to do over the summer just to expand, you know, the knowledge that I had, and to expand the like lab skills, because I knew I wanted to do something related to like being in a lab. And so I kind of filled out those forms, and eventually Loy sent out information about, oh, like, you know, send me like your general fields of interest. And so I responded that I wanted to do something hands-on, something that involved lab work. And so then I got paired with a mentor, and I was specifically like told the title of the project, and then I was like, yeah, I feel like that would be something I'm interested in, even though it's not necessarily something that I have experience with. So like I said, like kind of that growth mindset of, I saw a lot of words on the title that I was like, I don't know what these mean, so I had to search them up. But I did realize that it was probably going to be a cool experience to just throw myself into, and because the priority of this internship through the SAGE program is a lot of the learning, I knew that I was going to be supported, and I was very supported in, you know, going into this field. So
Perfect. Thank you, Riley. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for sharing your experience with all of us.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's go to our next speaker, Lindsay.
Hello.
I will share my screen. Okay. Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Lindsay and I'm a rising second year at UCLA majoring in computer science. This summer I was working at the SLAC SSRL Structural Molecular Biology Macromolecular Crystallography Group, or SMBMX. It's the same group as Aurelie. Before I kind of launch into my project, I'm going to quickly go over what crystallography actually is. Basically, in the process of crystallography, your main goal is to figure out the structure of a protein. And the way you do that is that you shoot an X-ray at crystallized proteins. And because of the structure of crystals, the light will diffract and create spots. And these are known as Bragg spots, and it'll make patterns like this one over here. If you rotate the crystal while you're shooting it with an X-ray, you can get lots of different spot patterns, and you combine these together to figure out or solve the structure of a protein. So you can go from patterns like this to proteins like this. My project was a script called Dicer, and it's designed for use with Zia 2, which is one of the many crystallographic processing softwares. And the way you use that is after you run data processing on a data set with Zia 2, you run Dicer and you use the output from Dicer to rerun Zia 2. And the purpose of Dicer is to salvage data sets that are kind of good and kind of bad, because sometimes your crystal might take damage in the X-ray and maybe half of your data is usable. Or if you have multiple crystals, you can also use Dicer to kind of amalgamate them together. So the workflow of using Dicer kind of goes like this. You start off with an initial data set that might have some questionable data in it. And then you run your first pass with Zia 2, which outputs a JSON file and a .xinfo file. And all of this is being done in the command line. And then you run Dicer, and also in the command line, and this will output a list of ranges. Then you need to format these ranges to be usable for Zia 2. And so I did that by writing a bash script. And that script outputs this super long command that I then can run in the terminal or the command line to get a new result. And hopefully it's better than before. And so here are some of the results I got. I started off with a data set that we knew was questionable because the way we took the data was that this crystal was kind of off-center, so that it was going in and out of the X-ray. And because of that, the data was super varied, and we actually got an incorrect result. So this is output from Zia 2. It gives you a bunch of statistics about the data, and also at the end, it tells you what space group and unit cell it thinks that crystal was, or that crystallized protein was. So it was said the space group is this, and the unit cell parameters are this. And each different type of protein has unit cell parameters and space groups that correspond to it. And so basically, long story short, this is definitely not the correct parameters. So what we did was we ran it using Dicer. We got a bunch of outputs. We formatted those ranges, and then we reran Zia 2, and this was the result we got. So as you can see, the space group and unit cell is completely different, and it actually is the correct protein. So by running Dicer on data that wasn't so good, we were able to get the correct result when Zia 2 couldn't get the correct result before. So why should we care? As Aurelie mentioned before, crystallography is used for determining protein structures, and these protein structures can be used to make medicine. By saving unusable data using Dicer, we can save on crystalline material, time, and money. Because crystals are really hard to grow. Scientists have spent months trying to figure out how to get a protein to crystallize. And so by using data that you have before, you can save on time.
It's also very expensive. It's also sometimes expensive to make crystals, and so you can save on money and you can save on crystal material. And so now, by saving time, material, and money, you can have more efficient production of medicine. So I learned a lot over the summer. Technical-wise, I improved my Python and Bash scripting abilities. And I also got a lot better at looking through documentation and understanding other people's code. Because believe it or not, I actually spent more time combing through documentation than actually writing code. I also learned a lot about a field of science that I never really knew about. I didn't have much background in biology or chemistry because I mostly took physics throughout high school, and I definitely didn't really know about what crystallography was. And I also achieved my main goal this summer, which was to explore different applications of computer science in non-tech related fields. I also got to work a lot on my life skills because during an internship, you're balancing a lot of different things. Obviously, you have to do your side tasks, but you also have to go to meetings, and there are a lot of other presentations and talks at SLAC. And Sage also helps you because they let you go to professional development workshops, which I think were really helpful. Of course, you have to take breaks during your internship, and you need to find new tasks to do once you don't have any of the other things to do. And so time management and prioritization was really, really important during this internship. One specific strategy I had was that every day before I went to work, I would kind of write down or mentally plan out what I was going to get done the next day. Sage also there's like a presentation about time management, which I thought was really helpful. So I think this summer I got a lot better at time management and prioritization and kind of just being more efficient with my time. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you so much to Art Liebenhoff, who is my mentor at SSRL SMBMX. He taught me everything that I know of now about crystallography. He taught me a lot about crystallography processing software and just coding in general. And just a really great guy overall. Thank you to SSRL SMBMX, the group that I was working in this summer. Thank you for Sage. Thank you to Sage for giving me the opportunity to have this internship. And finally, thank you to the High Energy Physics Department of Energy for funding my internship. Are there any
Awesome.
questions?
Thank you, Lindsay. Yes, there is one question for you. What was it like using someone else's code? Did they do a good job commenting, documenting it? That's a good question.
It was definitely really hard to like I knew what it said, like what it meant, because it's like I've used Python before, but it's like there's a lot of different functions that they have to use. And the documentation for that software was like really bad. So it was pretty hard. I had to like do a lot of Googling, I had to do a lot of testing of like what this function actually did. And obviously I'm not that familiar with crystallography to the point where like I can write my own like crystallographic processing software. So I also have to do a lot of research of what those functions like actually meant in the process of like solving structures.
Okay, so lesson learned is to document well
Mhm.
your software and
yeah.
explain it while you write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The crystallographic software was like, I don't know when it was written, but it was written a really long time ago. No comments and no
Yeah.
helpful like pages telling you what each function does.
I know. Yeah.
Mhm.
Most scientists, what Andrea said is that most scientists are bad at documenting. Yeah, it's not our favorite thing, that's for sure,
Mhm.
but we try.
Mhm.
Or we ask our interns to help. There is another question from Irene. What are you majoring in?
I am majoring in computer science.
Okay, good. So you found an application of your computer science skills. That's great. And then Genevieve is asking, to what extent did you have to learn knowledge or new learning in physics and chemistry to interpret the code?
Honestly, minimal. I think the most useful skills I had or was picking up was like biology. It was like, or more about crystallography is like the process of how you solve a structure, how you refine the structure, and like a lot of the math behind it. That was really helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lindsay, for your presentation. Thank you for sharing with us your experience. And we're gonna talk with the next speaker. That is Janavi.
Hi everyone. I'm Jonavi. I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I'll be talking about my project in which this summer I characterized photon sensors for use of detecting dark matter eventually, and I did this at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So a little bit about me. I'm a physics major. I'm going to be an incoming junior at UC Santa Barbara. And at Santa Barbara, I do research on an experiment called Lux Zeppelin, and I'm a part of the high energy experiment department at Santa Barbara. And fortunately, I was able to kind of be on the same experiment at Berkeley Lab, which is really cool. So my professor that I'm working with at Santa Barbara is actually a collaborator with the professor that I'm working at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So about my group, I'm in the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab Dark Matter group, and they work on a lot of different experiments, but as I said, I'm working on just LZ, and my mentor was Aaron Menelese. So just to give a bit of context about this experiment, we want to look for dark matter, which is 27% of the matter in the universe. And we're really curious about it because it contributes, or it's part of why the universe is structured in the way it is, which allows for galaxy formation, for example. So it's really interesting from a cosmological perspective. So we want to detect dark matter particles, and we do that using a experiment called LZ. And basically what the idea is that a dark matter particle comes into this detector, there's a collision, and then eventually through a process in particle physics, photons are produced. And photons are how we are able to understand what happened in the detector. And so we need a way to be able to interpret those photons. And we turn the photons into something that we can see or analyze on our computers. So the way we do that is using something called a silicon photomultiplier. And to step back a second and kind of understand what's going on here, we can start with something that's more familiar to us, namely an LED. So an LED stands for a light emitting diode. And essentially what happens with an LED is that you have electrons or a current, and using semiconductor physics, those electrons actually turn into photons and produce light that we can all see. However, with this detector, we want to receive photons and then be able to detect it in our computers. And so photons actually produce electrons or current, which we can read out. And the thing about these sensors is that, you might have lots of different kinds of sensors, but you want to understand this sensor in particular, like how many photons produce how many electrons, and does this sensor have any things that are wrong with it? Like, is it going to misfire, and is it going to make us think that there's dark matter in our detector when there isn't? So we do something called characterization. So we're trying to understand, in my project in particular, I'm trying to understand two particular attributes. So one is called the gain, and this is regarding, so for example, if I have one photon, I want to understand, okay, if I see one photon in my detector, how many, like, what is that going to show up as on my computer? So one photon gets absorbed into that like chip that I showed in the previous slide, and then that produces a current spike. And we actually read that out as a voltage spike. So this picture here is an oscilloscope. And for example, I could plug this into my computer and see the same thing. And this spike right here is actually one photon. And so you can see that like 1 photon is actually correlated to a spike of about 1.5 millivolts once you convert current to voltage. The second thing that is really important to us is we want to look at the dark count rate. And this is basically the sensor can misfire based off of the temperature that it's in, which could be a big problem because, as I said, you don't want to think that there's dark matter in your detector, say, hey guys, you found dark matter, when it's actually just your sensors misfiring. And so the dark count rate is, as I said, correlated to temperature. So the warmer that the sensor is, the more the sensors will misfire. So I want to understand the rate at which this sensor misfires, like this particular sensor misfires. And if you have more questions about why these two things are important, do let me know. So over the summer, I have learned a lot of new electronic skills, which is something that which was actually a goal for me personally. And I hadn't worked with basically any electronics before. And this summer I've gotten to build a lot of my own circuits. And I have worked with something called a printed circuit board. And so that's been really exciting for me, especially because now I'm learning to like interpret circuit diagrams a lot better. There's also been a lot of personal learnings. So as many people have mentioned, Sage has a bunch of workshops for professional growth. And one that really resonated with me was about professional presence. And that's about like how you present yourself in the workplace and how other people kind of see you as a person. I guess it's part of your personal brand. And there are 3 fundamental components to that. One being character, the second being confidence, and the third being communication. And together they help kind of bring that it factor to you and help you become maybe someone that's memorable to other colleagues or mentors, maybe someone who wants, like, people want to help you potentially in the future. I also had some, I guess, more technical learnings. One is that I really want to continue in the field of experimental high energy physics, which is important to me because, for example, I'm eventually applying to grad school. And so this is helpful to know, like, oh, what do I want to do in grad school? And then the second thing that I've been wanting to explore is detector instrumentation. I want to know if like that's something that I do want to pursue within the field of experimental high energy physics. And so I learned that I do. And I really enjoy working in the lab. I enjoy looking at the data. I like doing all the parts of it. And so that's something that I want to continue with in the future. And I would like to acknowledge my mentor, Erin Marlese, my postdoc, Dan Kodroff, and my grad student, Taurine. I would like to acknowledge the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab Dark Matter Group for being so welcoming and helping me with everything. I'd like to acknowledge the Department of Energy High Energy Physics program because they're funding my internship. And I would lastly like to thank Loy and Julia because my internship at Berkeley Lab would not be possible without all the extra effort that they are putting in on my behalf to like fund me at this internship. And it means so much to me to be able to be at this lab and to be able to work on this project in particular with all the flexibility and resources that Sage has. So a big thank you to them. And if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Genevieve. Thank you very much. You're our first Sage interns at Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, and we really hope there will be more next year. So thank you for opening the road for other interns at Berkeley. Any question for Genevieve? So let me ask one question. What types of professional scientist, engineer did you work with?
Yeah, so I have this summer, because my project was very electronics focused, I actually have been working with an electrical engineer who's not in my group a lot because he is the one who designed the printed circuit board. And so we've done a lot of troubleshooting with him. And then I've mostly worked with my PI, or Aaron, and he is a physicist or a high energy dark matter experimentalist. Yeah, mostly I've been working with them.
Okay. There's a lot of questions in the chat. What was the application process like for your internship?
So that's a bit of a complicated story, but I will say that I applied to a couple of them and I made sure to call and email Loy and Julia frequently, and they got me placed exactly where I needed to be. So always keep in contact with the Sage people and they will get you to where you need to go. So if you want to ask me more particular questions, feel free to reach out. But yeah, so how did I narrow down my interests, I guess is the next question.
Yes.
Okay. So Sage helped me a lot with that. Sage actually is what introduced me to the LZ experiment in the first place. And so I was able to join the LZ group at UCSB, which is really exciting. And I have done a bit of coding, I've done a bit of like more hardware stuff, and I've realized that I enjoy the hardware stuff more. And I think it's important to think about like what is motivating to you. Like, oh, I feel rewarded when I build something and it works, or I feel rewarded when I code something and it works. And so kind of following what felt rewarding to me was helpful in narrowing down my interests and kind of being attuned to what is interesting when you go to talks and things like that. Like, what am I really curious about? So detectors and learning about how they work and building them was something that's always been really exciting to me. So that's how I knew I wanted to like take it down that direction for this internship.
Okay, and the last question is, how helpful do you think the classes you took at school were to your internship?
So I think they were pretty helpful. Just because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with the circuitry is actually very physics oriented. And having a physics background is helping me to like interpret what's going on and the use cases for the circuits that I'm working with. But it didn't have to be. Like all the stuff that I'm drawing on from a day-to-day is learned. Like I've been watching a lot of Veritasium YouTube videos to brush up on my knowledge and being able to apply it. So the classes have been helpful, but it's certainly not necessary.
Okay. Thank you, Janavi, for your presentation. Thank you for sharing, and good luck with you. You are continuing your internship until September. Is that correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
So keep on going. Let us keep in touch. Okay. And last but not least, Apurva is going to talk about her experience.
Perfect. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Hi guys, my name is Apurva. I currently go to school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm a rising sophomore with a major in data science, and I'll be exploring, hopefully I enjoy it, economic analytics. So currently I have been working at SLAC in the HR department in the, I believe, talent development sector under my mentor, Niku. Yeah, so what exactly am I doing? So as I said before, I am a data science major, and one thing that's really important is survey making. So that's kind of what my internship right now is tailored towards, is what is a survey? How does it look like? How do you create one that's valuable for whatever mission you have? And then what are you going to do with the data that you get from the survey? So my goal for this internship was to combine all those things into one playbook or handbook so that the entirety of SLAC can look at it and have a reference point as to when they do need to create a survey, because I'm sure at some point someone will need to do something like that. In fact, today we had a poll in this Zoom meeting, just things like that of knowing, okay, this is what this scale is, these are what these graphs are, and a benchmark. So yeah, that's what it is for, and that's what I'm currently doing. And in the future, I hope will serve as a valuable tool for all SLAC employees. And actually, the internship that I'm currently doing related to all this inspired me to do a similar project for my club in college, which is Women in Business. And there I'm an organizational analyst. So I'm basically implementing another like survey type of handbook, so women in business can use that as well. And that's been a really cool thing that came out of this internship. So yeah, kind of moving on from there is like, what skills have I actually learned? And I think it's really important to highlight both the technical and the soft skills that we ultimately learn in this internship. Now, regarding the technical skills, I actually learned software and like actual like coding type of stuff related to Tableau. So Tableau is a data visualization software. We'll take a bunch of these spreadsheets and all that stuff and then make it into like a really pretty thing that people can look at and be like, oh, okay, so that's the current trend. So even though I am, just working on creating a handbook, my mentor knew that I wanted to do something a little bit more than that related to coding or something that I can concretely use in my career. And that's why Tableau has been really, really helpful to learn. So I'm currently on the process of getting my certificate as a data analyst using Tableau. Additionally, as I said before, I'm doing survey design and data visualization stuff. So that's also some of my technical skills. But more than that, let's dive into the soft skills. So one thing that's really important that Sage really highlights is professional presence in the workplace. And we have like numerous workshops where they bring in a bunch of speakers and you do a bunch of these like activities related to how are you presenting yourself in the workplace and how can you better your performance. And that has been super, super helpful. I had a lot of imposter syndrome coming into here. And I think attending all these workshops and knowing that you just need to fake it till you make it sometimes and it's all going to be fine was really helpful to learn. And yeah, thank you for setting that up, Loy and Daniela and everyone. So yeah, so next steps, as I highlighted, I'm going to be implementing the playbook in Women in Business. I will be able to highlight my skills learned using Tableau for future opportunities of growth. And then actually, as I said before, my mentor was super into like making sure that I know coding things as well as just my project that I'm currently doing. So I'm also going to be doing a little bit of coding for the women's ERG here at SLAC, and that will be really fun. Okay. So I kind of talked about what I'm actually doing as a project, but other than that, another goal that I had was related to self-awareness and limiting beliefs, and not the fact that I want to limit my beliefs, but rather expand and all that growth mindset jazz. So self-awareness, I knew that I felt out of place, as I kind of mentioned before, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't feel that way because that's an uncomfortable feeling, especially when not everyone that you're working with is your age and everyone has PhD and all those things and you're like, I'm just a mentor. And that was really, I had a lot of struggles with that. So I started to talk to my mentor about that and like, what should I do? How do I make sure that people actually want to listen to me and all those things? And I found it really helpful to talk to her. Additionally, I had a couple mechanisms for myself. It sounds really, really corny, but just looking at the words that I am confident, or like looking at really, really basic affirmations really helped me a lot. In this picture, you can kind of see a sticky note on my monitor, and that sticky note actually does say I am confident. And so before I go into meetings, before I have to present to people, I kind of just like look at that and I'm like, yeah, I am. And then I just go to my meeting. And that has helped me more than I thought it would. But yeah, putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And to me, that looked like putting myself in places where I didn't feel like I knew enough. And my mentor really, really made sure that I kept putting myself in these situations so that I got used to it. So I took part in the large HR meetings and all these fancy things that I had nothing to do with. I went to the town halls, I did the speed networking, I did all of these things just so I can get used to the fact that I'm not meant to be here, but I've really just like fooled everyone, and everyone thinks that I'm meant to be here, and haha, I'm actually, and then suddenly along the lines, I'm like, oh wait, maybe I am meant to be here. And that really helped. So yeah, in the future, I will be applying these lessons to future and professional endeavors. As I said, I am in women in business, so that is something that I consistently see myself doing, and also being proud of what I do know. As I said before, I did have a lot of these limiting beliefs. And I think one thing that really helped me is being like, wait, it's not that I don't know everything. It just because I don't know everything doesn't mean that I don't know something. And as long as you know something, you're usually able to contribute to a conversation. And that's literally like all you need. And just being proud of like what I do know. And if I don't know something, working towards that has been really helpful. But yeah, very, very quick presentation. But I would like to thank everyone here for listening to it, everyone here for becoming friends with me throughout this internship. My mentor, Niku, she's been amazing, highly recommend. Mark, Pam, who are also part of the talent development team, HR as a whole, Sage, so Daniela, Julia, Loy, everyone who's able to put this all together. DOE, high energy physics, all these great people who are able to give me the experience that I will definitely reminisce on in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Apurva, for sharing your experience. Sounds great. I want to comment one little thing. There is no little actually. At Sage, we really encourage to not call them soft skills, but professional skills, because soft sounds like, yeah, you can have them, you cannot have them, you know, they're important, they're not important, they're soft. No, it's like, and that's why we spend so much time organizing all these classes during the, well, first of all, we start with the Sage Camp, right? We do professional growth during the Sage Camp, and then we continue during the internship, and we offer those professional skills classes during the internship, because it's for your career, they are very, very important. They are fundamental for advancing in your career. They're fundamental to give you, there are tools that you can use to advance and to finally get to where you want, because sometimes you might not start to where you want to be, but they might help you get you there. So it's like, it's really important. I know it's a detail, but I really strongly encourage to use professional skills and never call them soft, because they're not. There's like, you know, the earlier you learn them, the earlier you get to, you know, talk about your work, be confident, be organized, and they are as valuable as a technical skill, and obviously that you have to have, right, for doing a good job. And
yeah, that's totally correct. You're totally correct about that.
Yeah. There's a few questions. There's one that I received at the beginning that I think really match your experience, but let's start with Irene question. Is data science correlated to business? What do you think you want to do specifically in business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Again, I did talk about women in business a lot. And I guess in some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. I think being part of a program like Women in Business is really helpful. So then you're able to connect with a lot of people and know how different places work. And that's ultimately why I'm part of it. And data science is just what I'm really interested in, is analyzing things, coming up with solutions, and that type of thing. And a great place to implement that is in businesses. So that's kind of like how I combined my two interests in those two.
And businesses uses data all the time. Like
Exactly.
To make a choice, to make a decision, big decision, you need data, you need good data, and you need to know how to get those data, interpret them well, trust your data, do future data. So it's yeah, they're going very well together.
Yeah,
There's
it's
one
also really
question.
important to know how to present your data, and
Yeah, exactly.
also why
Yeah.
business is good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one question that caught my attention in the list of the one that we received at the beginning, and it says, how can interns contribute to the team and be seen beyond other than as a high school student? What would you say about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that's hard because you're always going to feel that way. You're always going to be like, oh, I'm just saying this because I don't really know much, but here's my thing. I think really being confident in what you have to contribute is really important. As Julia mentioned, the professional presence skills that you're going to develop here are really important so that your values can be, or your contributions can be valued. So if you say things with confidence and you say things genuinely, people are going to take it more into consideration than if you did in a very timid, like, oh, I don't really know kind of manner. I think the question was, how do you make your things be seen in a better light? Something along those lines.
How can interns contribute to the team and be seen beyond being just a high school student?
Yeah, just like putting effort into everything, showing that you're interested, contributing to like one thing per meeting, maybe if you can, even if it's just like making your voice heard. Whether it be like, oh my gosh, that's such a great idea. Maybe that's all you say, but at least they understand that you're in the room. And the more that they understand that you're in the room, the more that they're likely to involve you. And I think that's what I learned.
Thank you, Purva. Yeah, I really like your question. And there is another thing that I would say about this is you are a high school student, just own it. It's not just a high school student. You're there to learn. You're there as a high school student in a professional setting. Just the fact that you are there is a big thing, right? It's like not just a high school student. It's a high school student that is going to do an internship and has taken the step to apply, respond, getting organized, apply, making sure that fills all the form, do all the training, and is there because he wants to learn. So it's not just a high school student. It's like it's really every intern is really appreciated at the lab. So it's just own that that you are interns there, and you are in high school, you are in college, you're there to learn and to contribute. So I really think it's nobody expects you to do more than that, yeah, so just take that position with confidence because you're doing a lot already being there.
Yeah, you've already passed all the check marks. They've already looked at what you know and already have all these things of being like, oh, okay, you've already gone through all of that. There's no more proving yourself or being like, oh, I'm not enough. They already think you are. That's why you're here. So just like go with that mindset.
Exactly. Thank you, Purva. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Julia, there is a question in my chat. It says, this is a question for anyone that would like to answer, all the presenters. Should you take an internship that doesn't align or relate to your major?
Speaking
Is there
from
any?
Oh, I mean, anyone can go. I can also just start off.
Yeah. Do you wanna? Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like it depends on how far it is from your interests. I would say if it looks interesting to you in general, yeah, you should. If it looks like something that like maybe could be applicable in whatever foreseeable future, you should, because then at least if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, then now you really know that you don't like it. I think all experience is good experience to a certain extent.
Thank you. Anyone want to give a take on this question?
I can volunteer. Last summer, I did a biology and chemistry related experiment. And that was very far from my physics interest in high energy experimental physics. And if you were at this Sage Live last year, you'll maybe remember that I said that it's also good to do things in fields that are not your own. Like, for example, last summer, I also did like a characterizing a system project, and that was useful for this summer. And I was able to rule out for sure that I don't want to do biology or chemistry, but that's something to know and kind of relates to what someone said, like, how did you narrow down your interest? So I think it is absolutely useful, and although it can be kind of hard to motivate when you're doing a project that doesn't necessarily align with your exact interest, it's still, you'll get a lot out of it anyways. And as long as you put in your full effort, you'll get out a lot.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Applause to all our interns that presented today. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. Thank you for taking the time to prepare the presentation and come and show up early in the morning for on Saturday for presenting your experience. Thank you very much. I want to just spend 1 more minute talking about application to the internship. So on our website, www.mysejourney.org, and Daniela, you can put the link in the chat, especially about the internship. There is a interest form that you can fill if you're interested in participating to internship at a national laboratory. So please fill that form. So when it's time to apply for an internship, we can send out information. So make sure you leave your email there. And there's, as we said, there's going to be a Sage Live about internship and what are the internships that are available at every national labs in October. And we advertise that on our Instagram. We send email to you on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So Facebook is outdated maybe for this generation, but we still have something there too. So we try to let you know when this is going to be available, and you can participate to that and ask all the questions. We go over application and we go over all the possibilities. So if you have question, I would say let's meet there. Then October is still way in advance, but just to make sure, the first internship at national labs, they open their application December, January. So you need to start thinking about it way ahead and around, like way before the summer. So for some of the internships. So yeah, make sure you follow our Sage Live about internship in October. Make sure you follow us on our social media, Instagram, and then in the chat there is this there is the link for the interest form about internship. Thank you to all our speakers. Thank you for joining us this morning during the Sage Live about internship this summer. And we'll see you next time. That's gonna be in September. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.